Yeah, I think Khabib really tarnished his reputation in the moments after what happened. He could have stood there with the belt, rubbed it in his face, said he was going to haunt him. He could have said, if you go up to welterweight, I'm going to follow you up there. You're never going to win another title while I'm here. If we fight again, I'm going to snap your arm. And instead, he jumps over the cage, causes carnage in the octagon and in the arena. You know, his teammates jump in. McGregor's hit from behind, cowardly from behind. And now those guys won't be fighting in the UFC again. I mean, look, you spoke to Gareth A, Davies and Dennis from Submission Radio, and this is what they had to say in the aftermath of the event.
Australia. Dennis, first of all, with you, obviously horrific scenes here tonight in Las Vegas, Nevada. Just your thought off the bat.
I just think it was a great moment. I think this was a fantastic event, but the fact is, I was walking around the arena just before, and there's just a sad feeling in the room. The event, in a lot of ways, has been ruined for me. I just think it's taken over the fact that it was a fantastic performance by Khabib. We were at the front, we saw the Khabib supporters, the way they were acting and what was going at the front. It was not something that people should want to experience. There were interactions with police officers. There was just a lot of bad vibe in the air, and I know that in the room right now, in the media room, a lot of people are quiet, a lot of people are disappointed. I think it went from being one of the greatest moments in combat history to one of the darkest moments in combat history, and I think people were looking for some sort of, I suppose, support, some kind of word of wisdom from Dana and the UFC to sort of make us feel better, to make us feel like something is being done. And Conor didn't press any charges. It just kind of seems like nothing was done. No one put their foot down in anything, and everyone sort of got away with whatever happened. So that's just how I feel at the moment.
Gareth,
I agree with you.
I want to ask you, obviously, the UFC brought out Khabib tonight. Was that the right thing to do, especially after the comments he made?
What brought him in?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's absolutely right to bring him in. I'm glad we saw him. He did make a fulsome apology, explained why it had boiled over. I think for a long time, well, what is it, 7 months or 6 months this has simmered. And these are two, this group of men from Dagestan, 7 years ago, Dagestan was the most dangerous country in the world, okay? There was a war going on there. They've grown up with a backdrop of that, and war talk from Conor, I think, is incendiary for them. I think it's very difficult. There's a line with building up a fight, insulting people and stepping over it. And I think two cultures clashed here and they didn't understand each other, and this was it boiling over afterwards, after the job was done. It really showed what the difference is between a fight sport, a mixed martial arts sport that we love, and violence, street violence, basically gang street violence. It's terrible. I concur with you completely. It's a real black eye for the sport. It's a double black eye. It's a broken orbital socket for the sport with so many people watching. It will blow over because it always does. I think, even though the UFC couldn't do much about it, I think the Nevada state will do something about it. It wouldn't surprise me to see Khabib get stripped or get a suspension, certainly in Nevada, which will be upheld in other places. But it's such a shame for what was a fantastic build-up, a fantastic global international event. Australia, Ireland, the UK, Americans, Canadians, Japanese, Brazilians, they're all here, and it's such a shame.
And we look back to the John Malkovich build-up video that we saw on Twitter, and how everybody sort of got behind it and said, you don't need to talk about a bus incident or two nations to sell a fight like this. When John was talking about these two fighters, he was talking about the best of the best fighting each other and seeing who the greatest person is. You don't always have to use fight footage or two nationalities making fun of their religion to sell a fight. I absolutely disagree with it. I think fans are getting sick of it. I think the UFC need to have a good think about their promotional methods, and I think that things can be learned from this situation.
I agree, and also I felt, sorry, excuse me now, I also felt, just while it's in my head because I'm so tired I may forget what I was going to say. Or did I forget? No, I didn't. It was a genuine question that I asked Dana about trying to arbitrate between the two teams. There are always ways of doing peace talks, and hopefully that is the end of it now, because we don't want the next repercussion. I cannot see how, is it Tugov and Artem Lobov now fight.
That fight's going to be off. Apparently, he was one of the guys that was.
I can't see that happening.
That was pulled back by the police, so that's not going to happen. Artem Lobov's fight is off yet again. But the thing for me, as a mixed martial artist, as a guy who gets in the cage, has responsibilities to uphold the sport and represent the sport. We can't condone those actions tonight from Khabib Nurmagomedov. Something really has to be done. And the thing I'm very frustrated about, and especially from coming from Ireland and being back home there, we have a constant battle to defend the sport there. And I think everyone worldwide now, everyone in this room, you could feel the tone. It was dark. It was probably the darkest day in mixed martial arts history on a world stage because of the audience as well. We're all going to have to defend the sport again. And can we after that?
It's a tough one because leading into this fight, I saw ESPN ran with the Ali comments and focused on the allegations behind him. So it was already a rough start for a lot of casual fans who don't really know much about what was going on. And then on top of that, this happens. It's going to take some time. I mean, it's hard for sponsors. The sponsors that sponsor our show, the programs that put on our programs, the websites that put on our articles, the families that wanted to watch. I mean, for God's sake, I was in the UFC shop. They were selling kids Conor McGregor t-shirts. There is a lot to be said for this. It is a professional sport. There is no excuse for a man to jump over a cage and attack another man, no matter what he says. We are all adults here, and there's a line to be drawn. I remember when Strikeforce happened, Dana had a lot of harsh words to say. Well, this is 20 times worse than Strikeforce.
Yeah, I mean,
100%.
we saw the dark underbelly, I think, tonight of what fight sports can be when it goes wrong, when the line is stepped over, and look, it will blow over. It always will. I mean, I've covered boxing where there've been real mass brawls at ringside, and it's so frightening to be in it. I mean, I was up in the gods on the ledge covering it tonight, and you could see it all kind of happening below you, and it looked like mayhem. I was literally looking right down on it. I do believe Dana White that they did the utmost, because I think through the week they did a brilliant job of keeping the teams, the crews apart. But this can't be allowed to happen again.
It shouldn't be supported or condoned or used for promotion.
But I've got to say, I want to see Conor calm his act down. The dolly in New York began it all. There was no need to do
I said that today.
There was no need to do that. And there was never any real comeback. And you saw Khabib this whole period. He's not. He was like maybe he was like a pressure cooker, and it eventually burst over today. He said he's going to get a proper drubbing down from his father. I'm sure he will.
And deservedly so.
Yeah, and I mean, Vladimir Putin calling him up, congratulating him. I mean, this is a man who is an idol to a country. There is a way to act. I believe, we haven't spoken to Conor McGregor yet, but him dropping the charges, it seems like he's just upset about his performance in the cage tonight.
No, but I think dropping the charges I think Conor's a great marketeer. I mean, let's rewind like 24 hours. He's a brilliant marketeer. I hope he learns from this. He doesn't have to listen to me. I'm an old bloke to him. I'm his father's age. But there's a line you can't step over. Sport is not about religion, insulting people's religion or insulting people's countries or calling people terrorists. It's got nothing to do with the sport. It's a fight in a steel cage and sports entertainment on a Saturday night.
And you need to get away from those things, I feel, with everything that's happening right now, worldwide, Australia, America, everywhere. We don't want this to happen in the sport. We want to watch two guys compete, find out who the best was. And that's what happened tonight.
Because Conor's a hero for so many people. He captured the zeitgeist for a generation. He's a brilliant character. I thought, by the way, he was off it tonight. I thought there was ring rust there. I thought he didn't look sharp. The timing wasn't
very sloppy.
He barely put a dent in Khabib. And Khabib was actually quite happy to stand with him as well in that third round, I think it was. Quite happy to stand with him because Conor wasn't quite there with it. Because we haven't discussed at all anyone tonight. What happens to Conor next?
And that was Gareth A. Davies and Denis from Submission Radio talking to Niall in the wake of the riot at UFC 229. And I think Gareth A. Davies hitting some very salient points in relation to geopolitical offences. I mean, if somebody stoked the flames of what goes on in Northern Ireland, we wouldn't be too happy about it. And what was your take on it, Niall?
Yeah, no, I totally agree with what Gareth said there to me and Denis. But, at the end of the day, as I said a number of weeks ago, and I got a lot of criticism, to be honest, on YouTube for, overplaying the dark element of this fight. And, it was obviously a surprise and a shock what went on in the aftermath of the fight. I think Conor was on the verge of crossing the line. I don't think he actually crossed the line, in fairness, in the build-up to it. You know, Habib said some unsavoury things about, you know, the Irish in the workout as well. There was, you know, about the whole language issue and Conor McGregor's grandfather. So, you know, all the trash talk puts eyes on the sport. This is what I want to get across. Once the eyes are on the sport, that's probably all that matters. And if guys don't see this as trash talk and a build-up to a fight, you know, get yourself together, because you can't be doing things like what we saw in the aftermath of that fight. I think it was absolutely disgraceful look for the sport. It was pathetic, you know, and in relation to me and to maybe like PC Carroll, the likes of the guys here in Ireland, the one question we always have to answer, or try and answer, is defend the actions of incidents like that. And I know they're few and far between, but it just doesn't help. When the world's eyes are on UFC 229 and we have an incident like that, there's no way you can condone Habib's behaviour. I thought it was a disgrace from the UFC for actually giving him a platform after the fight to go and speak as well. You know, just unbelievable. And I think, you know, putting spectators' safety in jeopardy was the main issue for me. I thought it was absolutely horrific. It obviously ensued a few issues after the fight amongst the fans as well. I didn't see it. And I want to put a point across as well during the week from a lot of the videos we did see online of fights and brawls. A huge amount of Americans and Americans were dressed in Russian gear and Irish gear. So, you know, were they actually people from Ireland? I'm not so sure, because there was so few compared to maybe the Mendes and the Aldo fights, Irish actually in the arena, that, you know, I don't think we can tar them with that brush that they were brawling, because, as I said, there was, you know, you go back to the press conference, you go back to the weigh-ins, a huge, as I said, amount of Americans were in Russian and Irish attire.
Well, just to follow up on that, I actually got in touch with the Las Vegas Police Department yesterday, and they just issued the statement saying they helped break up a few scuffles, no charges were pressed. I followed up then saying I was specifically asking to incidents involving fans outside the arena, and they didn't get back to me. So, you know, I don't think there's too much to read into that. I saw one video, but it was the same video from 5 or 6 different angles about one guy getting knocked out. But other than that, they seem pretty tame.
Yeah, you know, it was obviously unfortunate, the incidents that did happen after the fight. But yeah, as you know, I think there was even the lads, you know, Tugachev, who's supposed to be fighting Artem Lobov, that he's obviously never going to fight in the UFC again, according to Dana White. The lads were just, they were detained. They weren't even obviously fully arrested because Conor didn't want to press charges. And I think, you know, fair play on Conor. It's just, you know, sort of leave it there in what happens. And, you know, I publicly slated Conor McGregor after Brooklyn, and I'm going to publicly slate Habib Nurmagomedov, because it was pathetic. You know, the whole incident was just totally unsavoury, and being on such a stage that it was on as well, it's detrimental to the coverage of this sport in Ireland and across the world. And you know, the whole feeling in the media room was of total and utter disappointment. It's damaging the sport's credibility. You know, after all the incidents that we've had over the last few months, and, you know, listen, a large portion of them were involving Conor McGregor. And I'm just pretty disgusted. And another thing I want to say as well in relation to that is, you know, a large portion of the MMA community and prominent guys in the MMA community, and I've noticed over the last 24 to 48 hours, have more or less been condoning this incident. And I think that's absolutely pathetic. And I think it's something they really have to look at themselves in the mirror. You know, they're coming across as absolute fools by going anywhere near condoning the actions of Habib Nurmagomedov, because it was, you know, appalling and pathetic, as I've said. So that was another real disappointment for me. But I also got caught up with John Morgan from USA Today and MMAJunkie.com to get his thoughts. He's obviously a Las Vegas resident as well, and to feel what it's like around there, and maybe ask him some of the legal ramifications that may face Habib and what the UFC should do. John Morgan from USA Today and MMAJunkie.com. John, obviously you just want to get your reaction tonight, seeing chaos here in Las Vegas at the T-Mobile Arena. Off the bat, what's your feelings in the whole incident?
Sad, I guess I'd say. You know, it's one of the wildest things we've definitely ever seen, and it's unfortunate. I guess probably, I mean, I don't want to say you could have anticipated it. I mean, I don't think you ever see that happening, but I think we all realized going into this just how heated this rivalry was, and not just between the two combatants, but between the whole team. But it sucks, you know what I mean, because it puts a damper on what was an otherwise great evening. You know, a big night for the sport, ended up being a great card, but ends in terrible fashion. And Habib Nurmagomedov should be able to become a superstar after something like this. I mean, you beat Conor McGregor the way he did tonight. I don't think he's going to be able to really truly capitalize on what he accomplished this evening. So it's just unfortunate overall.
Can you tell me, obviously from an American point of view and the American law here, what would have happened to the 3 fighters from Habib's camp that were reprimanded and taken into custody? Would there be charges pending against them, against public safety? Or, what is the situation there?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm certainly no legal expert, so I won't pretend to know the ins and outs 100%. But I mean, I think you can see that what was there was criminal. I mean, that is not something that happens within the confines of a sporting event. This is not an injury occurred because of an extremely rough football hit or something like that. I mean, this is somebody jumping into a realm of combat that they shouldn't be in. So I think there's definitely some real opportunity for charges. In the same way that Conor McGregor faced real legal charges after the incident in Brooklyn, I think Habib Nurmagomedov and his team, they're going to face real legal charges as well. Now, how that all works out, we'll see. Obviously, the commission is going to have their say as well, but it's definitely not a free pass.
Where did the commission go from here with this incident? Any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. There's certain things they can do in ways of not licensing for the future. They can certainly fine. They made it aware this evening that they're withholding Habib first for the time being. They can certainly take some financial hits off that. But obviously there's nothing they can do in terms of relation to criminal stuff. That'll all happen separately. But they can certainly sanction him for fighting. And of course, Nevada is one of the strongest commissions in the sport, and a lot of the other commissions kind of copy what they do. So if Nevada says, listen, we're not going to allow you to fight here, we're not going to license you, certainly other states can follow suit.
Should the UFC have done more? Off the bat, we saw the whole Paul Daly, Josh Koscheck incident. I think it was Jason High as well.
I think what it needs to be is consistency. That's it. You mentioned incidents, and it seems like everything is on a case-by-case basis, which I'm sure is natural. But it just seems like there has to be some kind of precedent set. And I don't know necessarily what the UFC can do. I mean, they took a lot of steps tonight, man. There were police everywhere. There was added barriers everywhere. I mean, there was obviously steps in place to prevent what happened, and it still happened. So I don't know what they can do, but yeah, I think, listen, after the April incident, with Conor, the UFC said, listen, we'll wait to see how the legal system plays out, and then we'll make our move. And then they didn't make any moves, you know what I mean? So it'll be interesting to see if that differs here, I mean, I would like to see them take a harsher stance in situations like this. I don't know exactly what you can do. These are independent contractors, there's only so many things you can do. But, it seemed like after the legal things went away with Conor this spring, then the UFC just never followed suit. I'd love to see him maybe take a stronger stance moving forward. I don't know if you can do it here if you didn't do anything to Conor. I don't know how you can do something to Habib and call that consistency, but maybe it's an eye-opening moment for the UFC.
John, I appreciate the time on a dark night for mixed martial arts.
No worries.
And that was John Morgan from USA Today and MMAJunkie.com. John's a good guy, known John for many a year. Interesting stuff from John there, obviously trying to get sort of a line on what may happen in Nevada there in relation to the police. Obviously, it's all up in the air at the moment, but, Habib may possibly face, charges in relation to putting the public safety at risk. Obviously, Nevada said it let a commission have held his purse still, and we got a statement last night from the commission that read, they're not making any further comments and they're withholding Habib's purse until a full investigation is complete. And I think John is along the lines that he could be facing a lengthy ban. And I think the word there and the word that I liked was consistency. The UFC have to show more consistency. They have to really, create a level playing field in terms of these incidents. And, it can't be, one thing for one person, one thing for another. As I've said, they need to really clamp down on this kind of behaviour. And, to a large portion, the promotion of this fight and the way everything went down was their fault as well. They're the one who used the dolly incident. Not that it was surprising to me, but that obviously puts sparks of flames in the fire. So that really didn't help either. And I think maybe there might be sort of a period now the UFC look at how they actually promote fights, because totally unsavoury, as I said. But I do hope the Nevada State Athletic Commission come down strong on Habib and set a precedent, because it was disgusting and utterly just a bad look for the sport.